Good day, I am Angela Lynn, IB122, and I will be teaching CALENG1 Law Quiz 1. So this video will be the continuation of our discussions for the first long quiz in differential calculus.
So yung kailangan natin isolve is equation of the tangent. So if you remember, when writing an equation of a line, we're going to do it in this form. Y minus y sub 1 is equal to m times x minus x sub 1, where your m is the slope. In this case, since we're looking for the equation of the tangent line, so yung m natin is the slope of your tangent line. And then yung x sub 1 natin and yung y sub 1, that would be the coordinates of your point of tangency. And your curve is given with an equation of this one. So imagine that there is a curve, f of x is equal to square root of 2x minus 1. And meron siyang, may point sa curve na yon where a line is tangent to it. And that point is the x sub 1 minus y sub 1. We know na a tangent of a curved line would have a slope equal to the limit as x approaches 0, the change in y over the change in x, which is also the definition of a derivative. So, we know na yung slope na hinahanap niya sa tangent line is also f prime of x. So, we can solve this problem na knowing these concepts. So, f prime of x natin, remember na yung f of x natin is square root of 2x minus 1. So, square root of 2x minus 1 is also similar to 2x minus 1 raised to 1/2. So, we're gonna bring the 1/2 as a constant times 2x minus 1. And then 1/2 minus 1, negative 1/2. So, yun yung remaining exponent mo times the derivative of this function sa loob. So, this is the chain rule na may power rule, or like the general power rule. So, this whole thing will be equal to, since makakancel na to, so your derivative will be equal to 1 over square root of 2x minus 1. Pero, ito lang yung formula mo ng slope. It's not exactly the slope of the line. So, yung slope of a line, if you guys will remember, it's a specific number. So, what we have to do here is to substitute x is equal to 5 sa equation natin ng slope of the line. So, at x is equal to 5, your m would be 1 over square root of 2 times 5 minus 1. So, that would be 1 over square root of 10 minus 1 is 9, 1/3. So, ito na ngayon yung m mo. That's 1/3. Let's try to write this with a red ball pen para hindi natin siya maiwala. 1/3. So, next, ang kulang na lang natin in this function, again, we have yung m na. Ngayon, kulang na lang tayo ng x sub 1 and y sub 1. However, if you remember, given na dito sa problem, actually, yung x sub 1 natin. Sinabi na yung point of tangency would be at x is equal to 5. So, if x is equal to 5, what will be your y? All you have to do is, again, substitute this, x is equal to 5, to your f of x. So, yun yung magiging y sub 1 natin. So, your f of x is square root of 2, x minus 1. Now, your f of 5 will be square root of 2 times 5 minus 1. And that would be square root of 10 minus 1, or square root of 9. And that will be equal to 3. So, ito na yung y sub 1 natin. Now, to write this whole equation so that we can give yung answer na equation of a tangent line we're going to substitute the values. So y minus y sub 1, or y sub 1 is 3, is equal to m, which is 1/3, times x minus x sub 1, which is also 5. Okay, so we're just going to transform this into the general formula. So multiply both sides by 3. That will be 3y minus 9. This is so that we can cancel yung 1/3 dito. X minus 5. And then just transposing all the numbers to this side, that would be x minus 3y minus 5 plus 9. So that would be positive 4. So now, the answer to the problem is this. Ayan yung equation of the tangent line. So again, we review the steps that we used. So ang una natin ginawa is kinuha natin yung slope of the tangent line, which is also equal to the derivative of the curve. So the derivative of the curve is 1/2 square root of 2x minus 1. And then we substituted the given value of x into this one. So we get m is equal to 1/3. So this is the slope that we used. And then kulang na lang tayo ng y sub 1 as a value because the x sub 1, or the point of tangency, is already given at x is equal to 5. So we just substituted this value to our f of x to get the y sub 1, or the other coordinate for the point of tangency. And then substituting all these values, we get this one until we arrived at the equation of the tangent line. So for our next problem, if you remember kanina sa formulas, we tackled limits at infinity. Limits at infinity. Let's just go back there. Here, limits at infinity. So meron tayong theorem na if a constant is over an infinity, that would be equal to 0. Ito din yung theorem na ginagamit natin when solving for the horizontal asymptote. When solving for limits, you have to substitute the value that x approaches into the function. So if we substitute this, 3 times infinity plus 4 over square root of 2 times infinity squared minus 5. That would be 3 times infinity is still infinity, and when you add it to a smaller number, it's still infinity. 2 square root of 2 times infinity squared is still going to be infinity, and when you subtract it with a smaller number, it's still going to be an infinity. So your answer will still be like infinity over infinity. But this one's actually an indeterminate value. So we have to do something about this function so that we can further simplify it para makuha natin yung value ng true value of its limit at infinity. So what are we gonna do to simplify it? This method is actually the same as what we're gonna use if we were ever asked to find a horizontal asymptote. So this method is, what you're gonna do is to look at the denominator. I'm gonna reiterate this. Just look at the denominator. And then look for the highest exponent of the variable at the denominator. In this case, it would be x squared, right? This is your highest exponent, 2. Pero may kasama siyang square root. So it's actually square root of x squared. And it's also similar to x. So you can either use square root of x squared, or you can also use x. So ang gagawin natin dito is you have to multiply both the numerator and the denominator with the variable na nakuha mo dun, pero the inverse of it. So that's gonna be 1 over x over 1 over x. Again, we can use x or square root of x squared. We can use square root of x squared dito sa baba para mas malinaw, and just x only dito sa taas para mas malinaw nating makita. So now, we're going to have 3x over x plus 4 over x all over square root of 2x squared over x squared minus 5 over x squared. Then we can cancel this one. And then, ngayon, pwede na nating i-substitute yung value na na-approach ng x dun sa natitira nating terms. This would be 3 plus 4 over infinity over 2 minus 5 over infinity squared. So remember, meron tayong theorem dito. We can look at it again. Remember, meron tayong theorem dito sa limits at infinity na if a constant over x, and if there's a constant over x and you're looking for its limit as x approaches infinity, be it positive or negative infinity, you're going to have an answer of 0. So we're going to use that here as we're solving. So, ito yung constant and ito yung infinity mo. So that would be 3 plus 0 over square root of 2 minus constant again over infinity, 0. So, you're gonna have an answer of 3 square root of 2. I-rationalize lang natin yung square root para wala tayong square root sa denominator. So, square root of 2, that would be 3 square root of 2 over 2. So, this will be our final answer. So, let's go back at the processes we used to solve for this problem. So, first, we had to evaluate a function at its limit of infinity. So, kinuha natin yung variable with the highest exponent at the denominator and we multiplied it both to the numerator and the denominator. So, that's 1 over x. Remember, you have to inverse it. So, 1 over x over 1 over square root of x squared. So, after we arrive at a simplified terms, we're going to substitute infinity at x and then apply the theorems of limits at infinity. Then we're going to have the answer already. Again, you can also use this for horizontal asymptotes. So, our final number, or our final problem for this session will be this one. Okay. So, if you remember, or nandun dun sa pinakita kong formulas earlier in this meeting, vertical asymptote goes hand in hand with limits, with infinite limits. So, when you say infinite limits, it has a limit of x approaching a certain number a plus, or limit of x approaching certain number a from the left of a function is equal to infinity. So it could be positive, it could be negative infinity. So at least one of this, if at least one of this is true, like it doesn't matter if your limit as x approaches a certain value from the left isn't infinity, pero yung when it approaches from the right, it's infinity. If at least one of that is true, then you have your A as your vertical asymptote. So that's the theorem of vertical asymptote and infinite limits. So now, we are asked to determine all vertical asymptotes of this graph. So if you're graphing, you have to really calculate for the limit of that number from the left and from the right to identify yung behavior niya at both directions. But since we're not going to graph naman, we can just stick with the whole limit na. We don't have to consider one-sided limits na kasi we're not graphing. But if we're graphing, we have to consider both kasi you have to know kung ano yung behavior niya, kung saang infinity siya papunta at this point, or if it's not approaching infinity at this point. So, to identify kung ano yung vertical asymptotes nito, you have to make this function an infinity. And to make it an infinity, you have to make it undefined. Kasi 'di ba? let's go back to the theorem of infinite limits. You have to have a constant over an x, and as x approaches 0 from the right or 0 from the left, you're going to have a positive infinity or a negative infinity as your answer. So we have to have 1 over 0. Okay, para magkaroon tayo ng infinity as an answer. So in this case, para maging 1 over 0 to or a constant over 0, we just have to equate the denominator to 0. So that would be x squared is equal to 4 and x is equal to plus or minus 2. But pwedeng isipin mo na this could be the answer na, pero you have to still check. You still have to identify if this values would give you an infinite limit. So, para malaman, we're just going to solve for its limit. Again, since we're not graphing, you don't need to consider yung one-sided limits. But if you have to graph, you have to calculate for its one-sided limits to understand how the graph behaves at different direction that the x approaches. So let's start with positive 2. So that would be limit as x squared plus 2x minus 8 over x squared minus 4 as x approaches 2. So simply substitute this to the whole function. That would be, so 2 squared is 4 plus 4 minus 8 over 4 minus 4. So 4 plus 4 is 8 minus 8, 0. 4 minus 4 is 0. So this one, it's indeterminate. It's not an infinite limit kasi wala ka namang constant sa taas. It's actually a 0, so it's indeterminate. So to simplify this, we can factor the function. So we can have x plus 4 times x minus 2 over x plus 2 times x minus 2. So we can cancel this one and this one. So that's 2 plus 4 over 2 plus 2. So now we get 6 over 4. So meron na tayong real limit value kumpara dito sa indeterminate. So your limit as x approaches positive 2 is 6 over 4. It's not infinite. So ito, hindi siya vertical asymptote as x is equal to 2. Now let's see naman if it's a vertical asymptote if x is equal to negative 2. So again, substitute lang natin siya dito sa function natin. That would be negative 2 squared plus 2 times negative 2 minus 8. Negative 2 squared minus 4. So that would be 4 minus 4 minus 8 over 4 minus 4. So 4 minus 4 is 0, minus 8, negative 8 over 0. This is an infinite limit. So if this is an infinite limit, then x is equal to negative 2 is a vertical asymptote. So again, yung x is equal to negative 2 lang yung vertical asymptote natin. Let's box this since it's our final answer. Yan. Let's review the process that we used to calculate for this problem. So first, since vertical asymptote is limits or infinite limits, we have to make this function undefined where you have 0 as your denominator and you have a constant at your numerator. So we equate the denominator to 0 to find values of x that will make the function undefined. So we got positive plus or minus 2. And then yung plus or minus 2, positive 2, and negative 2, we use that as the values that x will approach if we get the limit of this function. So dapat, if we get the limit of this function at x approaches these values, dapat magiging infinity siya. So We didn't get it at 2, but we did at -2. So x is equal to -2 is your vertical asymptote. Thank you so much for watching. You may also avail of syntax tutorials by scanning the QR code flashed on your screens. Once again, this is Angela Lim from Syntax, paving your way to excellence.